strategy would be binary, it would be lumpy. It would mean one massive new airport opened up one specific moment of time in the future, with the risk that it would be half open, half empty at that time, and meaning that we had none of the capacity we need for all the time it would take to get to that opening. And it is absolutely ridiculous to suggest, as the Mayor of London does, that you could build such an airport in the same time as it would take to add one runway to an existing airport. In all that time, the economy is suffering. And the Stalinist command and control economy assumption that you can move hundreds of thousands of jobs to the Thames estuary at the stroke of a mayor or even a government's pen is itself preposterous. Many of those jobs would not move, many of them would move to Europe, and many others would no longer be economic because the capital and the investment on which they depend would be destroyed. If you look at the hotels, if you look at all the business infrastructure around Heathrow, the assumption that somehow that could all just be rebuilt cost-free in the estuary airport is wrong. If people have to pay twice for that capital, many less jobs will actually survive than are there at the moment. Now, we hear from Mayor of London there's going to be Kensington Chelsea or Canary Wharf or is going to be at Heathrow. Yet he's just been to Hong Kong, to the old airport there, where 15 years on, it's still a shell with next to no development in one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Now, we've heard from Boris as well. He told me that if he proposed this seriously, he would come down to look at the Thames Estuary, to the Hoop Peninsula, my constituency, where he wants to build it. Yet he hasn't come, so I can only assume that he is not serious. The Davis Commission, who did come, were absolutely astonished. They'd sort of thought, listen to Boris, it was like it was a blank sheet of paper. But there's over 23,000 people living there. There's nine villages. There is some of the most important energy infrastructure in the country. And I'm pleased at least Transport for London have recognised you couldn't use HS1 to access that new airport. It doesn't have the capacity, there's nowhere to put the trains at St Pancras. Yet Transport for London, like foster+partners, who are sort of in the clouds as much, I think, as the honourable friend for Harwich, they're saying there'd have to be 3 other substantial railway projects, including a parallel new high-speed line. And even those 3 projects don't do anything in terms of allowing the local access for work for all the people who have to come into that airport, which needs further tunnelling under the Medway towns to have any way of getting those people across the 2 current pinch points across the Medway. Crucially, the environmental protection on this area means, and the legislation requires, and I quote, that there must be an absence of alternative solutions, even to consider this given the level of protection. So therefore it cannot be a credible option if it's already been determined, as the Davis Commission must, that there are other credible options. In terms of cost and finance, the cost, I think, 80 billion. The Aviation Deutsche Bank analyst tells me it'll be 120 billion. Yet of that, we're looking at perhaps up to 30 billion of public money. Absolutely extraordinary and incredible. I don't think any government's going to fund that. But what about the private money that's going in it, ignoring all that new investment that has to come? You'd be looking at about another £50 on every ticket for anyone who used that airport. What a blow to business that would be. And as to its operational viability, National Grid in that area say the proposals being put forward for a Thames Hub airport on the Green Peninsula are incompatible with the energy infrastructure. The fog is 3 times at Heathrow and the risk of bird strikes is twice as high. The delivery risks are absolutely enormous. We've heard a lot about Heathrow, but I think Stansted, where we've also heard from, what it needs is better surface connections. And perhaps if it has that, even our Lib Dem friends would support us with those extra train connections to allow the half-empty runway to be better used. And I think Gatwick should be strongly considered, because they've got the money. It's only going to cost 5 to 9 billion to do it, about a tenth of what a Thames Estuary airport would cost. And I think with the improved train connections, and particularly Thamesmead, the Thames link to London Bridge, and crucially to Farringdon, it's also a credible option, and it would be good competition.
Strategy is a great title for a debate, but I think what we're having is Heathrow going to get away with it yet again debate, yet again. And I